Okay, great. So everyone is muted except for our panelists, and we will open up for questions at the end of our discussion. So if you have a question, just include it in the chat box, and we will definitely try to get to it. So I'd like to introduce our panelists today. We have joining us Mark Stenzel, who is the Executive Director of JournalList, a nonprofit association that created the Trust.txt program, which is what we'll be talking about today. Mark is also co-director at the Duke Reporters Lab at Duke University, where he's also a journalism instructor. Also joining us today is Ralph Brown, founder of Brown Wolf Consulting, which specializes in telecommunications consulting. Ralph is also the former chief technology officer at Cable Labs, and he is a member of JournalList's board of directors. And last but not least, Kevin Rayberg, who is AAM's vice president of client development. Kevin primarily works with AAM's news media clients. You might have also seen him as a speaker at numerous news media industry conferences and events. So welcome everyone. But Kevin, if you'd like to get us started on today's session.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start by welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to start by sharing my screen here, and I will make a point to not ask if you can see the screen as per everybody does. This will be a very innovative webinar, and we'll start by not asking if you can see my screen that I'm sharing. So we'll start with that. I wanted to, since this is a discussion about trust in media and one of the more promising quality beacons that's in the marketplace now, I wanted to start with some examples. If you've seen any of my presentations, I love examples. I think they really drive home kind of the discussions that we're having around trust and why building trust in media is so important, and why these systems that are being put in place to identify quality media, why we need to be focusing more on those. So I just want to put together a few examples of what the ecosystem looks like when we don't have those trust beacons, those quality beacons in place. We'll start with a screen grab that I took today. Actually, one of the biggest problems that quality publishers face today is the proliferation of fake news websites that trade off of quality news's reputation. It's extremely easy to go out and build a website that looks like it's local news and acts like it's local news, but actually is just sometimes the stories don't even make sense. They're evergreen content, or in a case like this, which is Illinois News Today, and you can actually go to this website right now. Like I said, I took this screenshot today. Illinois News Today is registered to someone in India, not known as a hotbed of Illinois news. Illinois isn't really a state. This caught my eye because Illinois isn't really a state that I was born and raised in Illinois, and it's not really a state that is known for state level reporting. You have kind of like three different regions of Illinois that see themselves extremely differently. Illinois News Today, or Illinois News Live, as it looks like here. This is simply a website that goes and scrapes actual quality Illinois news media and puts it on their website with a fake byline, and they pretend that it's their content. And then they can sell advertising and look like legitimate news based off of that. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of websites that look just like this, that simply steal content and make it look like their own and trade off of all of your names. Another problem that is growing in the space right now is made for advertising websites and those publishers. Most of us have accidentally clicked on these sites before. I know I have, especially from social media. I'll see a headline or a story that gets my attention. I click on it in one of my social feeds, and then immediately I realize I'm in a made for advertising environment, because you scroll and it's two sentences, and then there's an ad injected, and you scroll two more sentences, there's an ad injected. This particular example, there are 93 ads identified on that page. The advertisers probably don't realize that they're being mingled in with that many advertisements. When they get their campaign audits done at the end of advertising campaign, it is very easy to overlook and to not see from the buyer's perspective when they're placed on these websites, as opposed to if they had a choice. Of course, if they knew that they were on these made for advertising sites, they would much rather be on quality media sites instead of something like this. So it's frustrating for many advertisers and media buyers, and of course it's frustrating for most of you who are on this webinar here who are publishers, because you have a much safer and more effective alternative to get in front of audiences, and these advertisers aren't taking advantage of it, even though you have it right there at their disposal. And now we're going into even further into the rabbit hole, because you can create fake news at an alarming rate. One of the first commercial applications of artificial intelligence, once it kind of became mainstream a year ago, one of the first things it was used for was to create fake news websites at scale. That was one of the first commercial applications for AI, unfortunately. And it allows the bad actors in environments to go out, and essentially you don't have to steal a story from an Illinois news source anymore. You can take that copy, plug it into ChatGPT and say, hey, please rewrite this story slightly so it doesn't look like it's plagiarized, and then they can put that on their website. And it can be a cleaner version that can escape many of big tech's filters and alarm bells. And in this case, I believe this website, I think this website is still up also. And that's exactly what that's doing. I like this example in particular because of that thumbnail that's up there. I think that's like a Taboola carousel there, but it's a uncanny valley, someone with an uncanny valley look on their face, which is, to me, pretty symbolic of AI, kind of where AI is at right now in the first place. Anyways, and if you notice, the background of this slide is a casino. That's not on accident. I like to say, if you're a publisher and you're not participating in any of the quality beacons that are out in the marketplace, like what we're going to talk text or Trust.txt, like we're talking about today, you're really forcing media buyers to gamble with their advertising budget. And that doesn't benefit anybody, and it takes money away from quality media that's out there. So that's why I'm excited to be having this discussion today with Mark and Ralph. And with that, I'll stop my screen share here, and I'll be happy to hand it off to Mark and Ralph, and they can talk specifically about one of the better quality beacons that's out there, and all of you can learn more about it. Oh, you're on mute, Mark.
Well, we said we were going to do this the old-fashioned way in certain ways, Kevin. So, hey, thank you so much, Kevin, and thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate you giving us time to share some of what we're doing here. The problem, you described the problem perfectly, and it's only getting worse. There was a moment just a couple of weeks ago when Microsoft's news channels on their browsers and such started posting articles that were actually based on real events, but were picked up mostly by not quality web publishers who made up more colorful headlines and lots of just disregard for sometimes very sensitive issues that were being represented in these news stories. And people were outraged about it. And what it turned out had happened was Microsoft had reduced the team they had for monitoring those stories, and turned it over to technology to look for the latest, greatest news stories that were making it big online. And so the platform was suddenly emphasizing the worst kind of stories, when there were in fact very good stories by real serious news organizations that were handling those subjects much better than Microsoft had. And this is really one of the crux of the problem for us. We have a bunch of platforms that we all depend on to find our way around the internet, and they're not the sources of news are not always so well vetted. And it's why we set out to create a system that would make it a lot simpler for these platforms to identify our work, to find the good, serious news organizations, and make sure that those are the stories that get elevated, the stories that are done by real journalists, not people masquerading as journalists. And we came up with a pretty simple process for doing this. And it's a process that many of us in the news media are familiar with because we have our robots.txt files that we put on our website. Those little text files that help decide, help the search engines figure out what they can do with our content. And ads.txt very significantly about who's providing the advertising and how all those connections are made. This very same technology is the way that we can say, hey, this is a right and proper news organization. This is a site, this is an organization that we know is part of the news media establishment because it's connected to state press associations. It's connected to organizations like the Alliance for Audited Media, for Digital Content Next, for state broadcast associations, and all of those affinities, all of those connection points that we can each list in these very simple text files provides a mechanism that would prevent exactly what happened on Microsoft's platforms in recent weeks. And Ralph was one of the key people to make this happen and both to create the spec and make sure that it was recognized by the authorities of the internet. And Ralph, why don't we just have you explain a little bit about how this came to be?
Sure. Yeah, we had Scott Yates, who's kind of the founder of JournalList, was an innovator at residence at Cable Labs, and I was a mentor there. He asked me to be on his board, and we kind of worked through this. I provide a little bit of technical assistance as well as being a board member, but I can talk a little bit about the specifics. I think the thing that's most amazing about this, the JournalList ecosystem and Trust.txt, is it's an incredibly simple process, very, very easy, but very, very powerful, as Mark was explaining. So let me share, what is a Trust.txt file? So let me share my screen, and I'll show you an example. This is AAM's Trust.txt file. You can go to Audited Media and look for their Trust.txt file. And you can see that they identify their members by a simple statement in this text file that says, I have a member, 2020mag.com is a member. And of course, they have lots of members. In fact, they have, Biz Journals is in fact a member of AAM. So you can see that you can declare those sorts of things with membership. Pardon me while I scroll to see the other aspects of it. They can also say, we are a member of JournalList. So JournalList.net is the organization that Mark leads and I'm on the board of, as well as identify the social handles for their social networks. So whether it's Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or others. And then they also list sites that they control. So Audited Media is referencing themselves as the site they can control. To give you an idea of, say, for example, Biz Journal, you can see that's another one where they list the sites they are controlled by. So American Cities Business Journal is actually the controlling entity of Biz Journals, and then they identify they belong to all of these state press associations, what their many, many, many social networks are, as well as what their contacts are. So who to contact for information about those publications. There's also relationships between them and their suppliers, and we can show that. So very simple file, as Mark said, easily consumed by the platforms and ad tech to identify those kinds of relationships. I think it's helpful to show, so this creates a social network or a social graph. And I think it's useful to look at what that graph looks like visually. And here's what it is today. So we have a process, we crawl the web and look for trust.txt files to show all the associations. So this is a very busy graph, but let me talk through it a little bit. So the blue dots are publishers, the green dots are associations, yellow dots are vendors. So for example, if you have a content management system or a CMS, that would be a vendor of the ecosystem. We've found it's useful to include them as part of this ecosystem because they do, manage publications, their content management systems, and are in contact or have relationships with many news publications. And so you can see how many of these interconnections between membership and those sorts of relationships are shown through these diagrams. I've highlighted one of Mark's favorite organizations and websites, Duke's Reporters Lab, and you can see over here on the left, Reporters Lab and their trust.txt file indicate they control the fact stream and claim review project sites. They are controlled by DeWitt Stanford at Duke.edu, and they also belong to JournalList. So that gives you how all of these linkages get made. The thing that's interesting about this is you see down in the lower right-hand corner a bunch of unconnected groupings of publishers and associations. And the thing that's interesting about those is they're not connected to the ecosystem. So there's nothing that says a website can't publish a trust.txt file. However, if they're not part of the ecosystem, they kind of stand out as being questionable. And so this one particularly here, I thought we really made it when we actually had Kinky Tom put up a trust.txt file. And this is, so when the naughty sites start putting up trust.txt files, you know that you've gotten somewhere because they're adopting the technology. So you can see as we grow this ecosystem, we show all of these relationships, and it gives the signal to the platforms in the ad tech that these are in fact credible associations because of, the old adage, you're known by the company you keep. So I'll stop there. And so that was a quick summary of what is a trust.txt file and the ecosystem that results of it. But as you can see, pretty powerful, pretty simple. I think we had one site that they said it took them all of about 7 seconds to put up their trust.txt file. And that's something JournalList does for all of their members, is to provide them with a starting point of their trust.txt files. So we generate trust.txt files for all members. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mark.
Yeah, it's and when it comes to those naughty sites that Ralph mentioned, we have a very similar process to dealing with that, in the same way that we would deal with the Illinois news site that Kevin was showcasing, because if they are not affiliated with the AAMs of the world, with the state broadcasters, the state press associations, they are outliers. And if we can map essentially this series of connections we have, that's what makes this such a strong and simple system. We're not throwing anybody out. We are identifying our bona fide credentials by simply saying we are part of these different news media associations, and the more of them that we can show those connections on, we begin to see that, oh, these are the real sites, the real reliable news sites. And right now, with the hundreds and hundreds of sites that have put up trust files already, we have a system that creates 4,500 of these different reference points. And as more news organizations and news associations join the system, the JournalList system, we can use this self-policed kind of model as a way to help all of the platforms showcase our work, keep track of who's a legit news organization and who's not.
Yeah, great, Mark. That's very helpful to see all the visualizations too from both you and Ralph. It looks like we had a question
I
from
answered it.
oh, you did? Okay. I wasn't sure if everyone else knows, all of, AAM is a member of JournalList, and because of that, all of our members are listed on our Trust.txt file. But then also now we announced this fall that all of our members are also automatically members of JournalList, right? So I don't know if you could give kind of an overview of, just briefly, what do they get with that? How does that work for them? How can they get their own Trust.txt file?
Well, if any member of AAM can reach out to us and reach out to you and Kevin and Aaron and the other folks at AAM, and we will help create a trust file for you. Some people can, there is a spec out there so people can do it on their own. We're very happy to help. We realize that people in the news media are very busy and don't necessarily have time to learn how to create one of these files. So we're happy to do it for people and get it to them, and then also work with them to figure out how it fits into the architecture of each of their websites. Mostly we're trying to get these files into key directories, and it varies a little bit from content management system to content management system. And as time goes by, as we work with these publishers, they'll tell us what other organizations they're connected to. There are already some overlaps there with, say, some of the AAM members. And as you saw with the Business Journal example that Ralph was sharing. And with that, we start to see this pile up of connections that reveals this map of the serious news universe.
Okay, so if they would like their own Trust.txt file, should they reach out to you directly?
They can absolutely do that.
Okay.
And I'll just toss it out there just now, but I'm sure we can share it with everybody. It's to reach me, it's Mark at JournalList with 2 L's.net. And we also have a contact form on our website at journalist.net. Again, 2 L's. And that will get you on our radar, and we'll get you set up. With all of the different associations we work with, we have 7 state broadcast and press associations involved right now. We have other groups like the Association of Alternative Media and Digital Content Next and others. And having all of those, any organization that is a member like AAM, all of their members become members of the JournalList project. And that's why this beacon that Kevin described can be so bright.
Yeah, I know we're excited to be a part of this and to be partnered with you on it. And again, just to reiterate for our members, for our clients, this is no cost, right, Mark? There's no annual fee, there's no gotcha down the road or anything like that. This is strictly a play to differentiate quality media.
Absolutely. And even for the associations, it's a relatively small fee because we're not really trying to make money out of this. We are a membership organization. So as you become members of JournalList, your publishers become members of JournalList, and that way everybody has a stake and everybody sort of owns it. Our ultimate goal is to for those of us who've created this system and are working on it now, we our charter is to essentially hand this over to the news media to manage this system going forward once we get set up.
Well, great. If anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to type it in, but I think we answered the ones that we had. But this has been a very informative session. But thank you, Mark and Ralph and Kevin. for presenting. And also, yeah, Mark said to reach out to him at JournalList.net, 2 L's, of course. But if anyone forgets that, feel free to contact us. Just go to auditedmedia.com. We have a contact form and we'll connect you with Mark as soon as we can. But thank you everyone for joining. And I guess that's it. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.